The way you modify your car can say a lot about you. In some cases, it can be quite embarrassing. And the quality of work will multiply the outcome, good or bad. And I'm telling you this because I'm guilty for ruining a few of my cars. This one in particular, the car I left behind in a shed when I moved to New York City. But luckily, I've learned a lot since then. I'm Quay, and I'll be molding a set of wide-body fenders to my 1994 E320 W124. I've always admired the mindset of a purist, keeping everything all original, but I've always modified my cars. I prefer having something that isn't exactly like someone else's out there. I always want it to be mine. In most cases, cutting up a car's original fenders to install a wide-body kit is the beginning of the end of that car's life. A trend that continues to grow as cars begin to go extinct. Although the scene of stance cars appears to be slowing down, the desire to fit a wider wheel and tire setup may always remain, which is why someone would cut up their car to install a wide body kit. The chances of someone else ever buying that car and paying someone else to reverse the damage that has been done is highly unlikely. I do body work for a living now, and I can tell you, it's no small task to replace a quarter panel on a car.
If you stick around, I'll show you a couple of my tricks.
In 2017, I molded a wide-body kit onto this BMW M3. The job turned out pretty decent, considering it being my first time doing any body work. But back then, I didn't think about the longevity in things, and anything really. And now cracks and imperfections are starting to show because of it. It really is quite embarrassing. I'm desperate to fix this car, but one project at a time. Wide body kits seem to be so overdone these days that it's put a bad taste in my mouth. But I can't hide the fact that a wider car still appeals to me more than a narrow body car. Welcome to Club Quay. Sup? You ever wonder why you like what you like? I do, but I think too much. Growing up in the 90s obsessed with cars, high performance sports cars that is, these to be specific, and they all have something in common. They've got some wide hips. And there's a very good reason for that. Cars with a lot of power need more grip than the usuals, which is where wider wheels and tires comes into play. To those who haven't seen the 500E Haggerty video, the W124 was not designed to fit a V8 power unit. And in order to compete with cars being manufactured at the time, they had to stuff a V8 into their W124. In 1991, Mercedes began reworking their engine bay and transmission tunnel in order to fit their 4.2-liter M119 V8, along with suspension components derived from the R129, making the 400E, which remained a narrow body, with skinny 205/60s on 15x7-inch wheels. In order to take their new W124 V8 to another level of high performance, they handed it over to Porsche. Now with a more powerful V8, the car required wider tires to put the power down. And with the R129 suspension widening the track width, they gave the car wider fenders and flared quarter panels in order to get them to fit much wider 225/55s on 16x8-inch wheels, making the car 2.2 inches or 56 millimeters wider. With all that being said, they made the car wider to make the performance higher. Subconsciously, I must like the wider car because it's a sign of high performance. And it makes me wonder, if the narrow body car was a high performance car, would I like those better? I have no idea, but that's what I like. Removing the fenders requires disassembly of the front end. Removing the headlights and bumper give you access to the bolts holding the fenders on. The headlight wipers will be making a comeback. I noticed the side brackets holding the bumper on had rust along with the hardware. Definitely triggered some unpleasant memories from the last video. you know? And of course, the hardware didn't want to break free the way it's supposed to. I actually test fitted these fenders last summer, right after I installed the coilovers, just to find out they didn't fit at all. Which was another reason why I took some time away from this project. I intentionally left a bunch of hardware and other random parts off the front end of this car, knowing I'd come back to do the tedious work of test fitting. The Socko panels are held in place with plastic clips, and plastic clips drive me insane. They seem to break every time, especially if you never removed them before. Last time I mentioned the rust on this car was decent on the body, except for this area, on both sides. It should have been taken care of last time, but I still need to get my hands on a MIG welder to repair that kind of mess. All the work so far should have been done correctly all at one time, but if that were the case, I'd never get anything done, so it'll have to wait until I can acquire a MIG welder, and I'll show you how I would hide a repair just like that. Back in April of last year, it was a regular day at my old job, painting high-end cars, but I was feeling extra anxious that day. A package was arriving from Latvia. You know that crazy feeling waiting for a package to come in the mail? You know, constantly checking your phone for tracking updates, and in that package was a set of fiberglass 500E fenders from classic Euro parts, and I happened to be doing some paint work to a Pagani simulator for the Huayra R. Apparently, if you buy one of those, it comes with a simulator, so you can get a feel for the car before taking it to the track. Looks like a sick video editing setup if you ask me. Maybe if I had one I could edit videos faster. Maybe one day. Straight out the box, I put them in my paint booth to go through a bake cycle at 165 degrees for 45 minutes. Which translated to 145 degrees inside the booth. Fiberglass doesn't conduct heat as well as metal, so they reached around 130 degrees. And there's a very good reason why you want to bake these. Fiberglass panels are made by spraying a gel coat, or in this case, brushing it into a mold, which is the white surface you see on the outside. The fiberglass comes in two different forms. There's a cloth form, which has the fibers woven together, or in this case, chopped strand mat, where the fibers are randomly oriented, which is easier to use on complex shapes such as fenders. A roller is then used to compress the glass down into the mold. And this is part of the process where air can get trapped if not rolled properly, which definitely is no good. Baking them at a high temperature will bring any imperfections out, which is something you need to do before molding them to the car. For the most part, only minor imperfections showed. You can see little bubbles at the corner of this panel, which I'll definitely need to address. Mercedes-Benz no longer manufactures replacement fenders for the 500E, and finding used ones is close to impossible. And if you do, it'll cost you a fortune. As much as I'd rather have metal fenders on this car, it's just not realistic. However, I've got a solution to make these fiberglass fenders stand up to the test of time. I was really hoping I wouldn't have to do much work on these front fenders. It would have been ideal to bolt them on rather than mold them on, but I knew before buying these they would need some work. That's just how it goes buying any aftermarket fiberglass parts. But not this much work. All the panel gaps are insane, and there's no more room for any adjustments. Even after grinding a massive hole where the indicator brackets were molded incorrectly. I even made templates on the original fenders where all the mounting points are. I need to get these aligned properly, or my measurements for the wheels will be way off. You can see the dimensions of the fender arch change as I flex it into place. The passenger side cooperated better than the driver's side, but that's still not saying much. There's too much fiberglass buildup on the corners, causing it to touch the hood. It's too much touch. The worse the panel gaps are, the cheaper the car looks. No good. Attempting to mock up the headlights, you can see how far off those indicator brackets are. They're even missing tabs for the headlight wiper panels. Same situation on the passenger side. So in this case, the headlights could only bolt up to the rad support, and everything around them just sat in place. Sort of. Regardless of all the issues so far, I could start seeing it come together. I'll need to do some plastic surgery to make these bumpers fit correctly. It's actually crazy to see how much wider they are. Hopefully, that's accurate. To test fit the rears, I'll be taping them onto the quarter panels. I couldn't tell you the last time the car was washed. It's been covered in dust and rust particles for months, so I wiped them down with a glass cleaner for the tape to stick. Normally, you should rinse the car off first. Doing it this way will put small scratches in the paint, but these panels are getting repainted, so no worries. All these panels have been sitting flat in a garage since I bought them, and you can see how warped they got. It's another imperfection I wanted to happen before doing any body work. These were intended to hang inside the quarter jamb and onto the bottom of the fuel door pocket, which would alter the factory panel gaps, making your modifications look very cheap and quite embarrassing. So I'll have to find another solution. This tab for the fuel door pocket prevented the bottom edge sitting correctly against the bumper, so I cut it off. I love the smell of fiberglass. That's better. And when it comes to taping anything, I would suggest not wearing gloves. It's very annoying. There isn't much contact surface area on this bottom edge. I'll have to fabricate a bracket for it to mount to and still look factory. I want these wheels to fit as tight as possible without any rubbing. To test fit the wheels, I'll be removing the springs from the front and the rear. Removing the springs will allow me to essentially bottom out the suspension without changing the articulation of the suspension's travel. Removing the calipers and dropping the entire assembly from the strut tower will allow the springs to be removed stress-free. I feel like it's time to bring out some old automotive artifacts. I've always had a thing for 3-piece OZs. I'll be using some telescopic jack stands to bottom out the suspension, then adjust the camber at my desired ride height. The barrels and lips on these wheels are trash, so don't mind how I'm jacking them up. Shortly after buying these AMG Aero IIIs made by OZ, I came across a marketplace listing that I couldn't pass up. A wider set of barrels and lips for the 35-hole OZs. I'm really hoping to make these work. I found the struts bottom out sooner than I expected, so I have to adjust them. On these Yellow Speed Racing coilovers, you can adjust the shock body so you can have the proper amount of travel. With everything loosened up, I cranked the shock down about 1 inch on both sides, and tightened everything back in place for now. I'm sure I'll be adjusting these again later. The tedious process of trial and error. I really wish these dust boots weren't yellow. They look like cheap dog toys. Getting the wheels back on, I'm now able to get them to sit much closer to the fenders. Adjusting the telescopic jack stands, and placing some wood on top so I don't damage the new control arms. And for old time's sake, I'll leave it at this ride height. Setting planks of wood against the wheels and using an app on my iPhone, I'm able to get a rough idea where the camber is at with this ride height. As I've said before, I'd like a dash of negative camber up front, similar to the alignment of a DTM car. Let's call it -3. I can always change it back if it's too much. Either way, I should have no problem running bigger lips and barrels up front. Dropping the lower control arms is all that's necessary to remove the rear springs. Feels like I've done this 1,000 times. Don't mind that disconnected brake line. A lot of loose ends I still gotta tie up, but I'll need more motivation to make those ties. And just like the front end, bolting things back in place to keep that articulation. Look at these guys, just chillin'. Unfortunately, I can't hang with them, because the rears have bottomed out way too soon, again. Since I've opted for the Club Performance set, the hydraulic line to the external reservoir prevents any further adjustment. I don't plan to run this car as low as my time capsuled M3, but I like to have my options, so I'll have to decide on different shocks or to modify the strut towers. But for now, I'll just be cutting the bump stops in half. Mounting the rear wheels, I noticed there wasn't as much room as I was hoping for. But jacking them all the way up to the bump stops, there appears to be enough clearance to replace these 3-inch lips for the 3.5. Only problem is, I want to remove most of this negative camber, and I still have to consider the dimensions of the new tires, which I'd like to be period correct. Every degree of camber increases or decreases the clearance by 5 millimeters. Running those 3.5-inch lips would be 13 millimeters wider, so it's not looking good. There is a balance to everything in life, and this is the point where you forget about the big picture and take things too far, just to make something work that shouldn't. With the locking nuts loose on both caster and camber arms, simultaneously turning the bodies on both, which proved difficult with the wheels in place, so I bought these toe alignment brackets with an inclinometer. With the wheels off and the brackets on, I can now see the adjustments while I adjust. Setting the rears to -1 degrees. And I went ahead to do an adjustment check on the fronts as well. And now I've finally got an idea of how wide I want to build these wheels. I've still got a long ways to go, but there's that feeling again. It's the feeling I never found with my 997. Turning an old worthless car into something special. Going through all the ups and downs is what builds character, and all the modifications I do will determine its personality, its style. Imagine if everyone dressed the same. How boring that would be. And no matter how many cars I've modified, ruining them in the process, it doesn't matter to me. I've learned something new every time. I just don't want to look back 10 years from now and say, how embarrassing. Thanks for watching.